Friend Crush. I'm your host, Amber Killer. This is my podcast where I talk about stuff and things, cute, chaotic, and critical thinking. I'm a DJ and a creative consultant. You can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at Amber Killer, on SoundCloud and Spotify at Amber Killer for music mixes and playlists. The meme page for this podcast is at friend.crush on Instagram. Thank you for sending me questions, comments, feedback. I am so grateful. I'm literally getting paid in compliments, so I appreciate it a lot. It motivates me to keep scheduling and recording. And I hope everyone's doing well. Today's episode features a very special guest, Derrick G. He is a creative director, music manager, multidisciplinary, multifaceted creative. He's worked at Mixcloud. He was a radio host on NTS. He's worked for 88 Rising. And he also has been married for 10 years to his wife, and they're just about to have a baby, probably had a baby by the time this episode comes out. So I'm really excited to talk to him about creativity, advice for creatives and artists, his experience, what it's like for him being on TikTok now, because he recently started posting on TikTok, and also any insights he has on his relationship and relationships in general. Because I think it's really nice to speak to people that are like actually in healthy relationships, not just people that are learning from being burned. You know what I mean? So yeah, I hope you enjoy this episode. And let's get into it. What's up? Hi, Derrick. Welcome to Friend Crush. Thank you for being a guest.
My pleasure. Thank you for asking me and turning it around so quickly.
Yeah, isn't that wild? Great timing. And Derrick and I are internet friends.
Truly.
We haven't met in person yet.
No.
So we share industry. We have shared industry trauma and friends. So that's how we've connected. And I think, I'm excited to see your perspective on your experience in the creative industry. I think that's something that a lot of people are curious to know more about. And then also, congratulations, you are about to have a baby, about to be a father.
Due date's tomorrow.
Which is so exciting.
So,
actually?
Yeah. So I've been trying to sign off from work for a while, but then he hasn't come yet. So I'm still working.
So confirmed that it's a boy?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's so exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think also getting your perspective as like a mature adult in a healthy relationship, doing adult things is also something that would interest people as well. Because I feel like a lot of the times people that are in their like early and mid 20s are giving each other dating advice and sometimes, or dating perspectives. And I feel like that creates this myopic echo chamber of nonsense. And for me, I'm always looking to people that have experienced more than me, been alive longer and have more insight and wisdom. So,
yes, I will share as much or as little knowledge as I have.
Let's get into it. Let's start with just an intro from you about who you are, where you're from, education, work, life, etc. Tell us.
All right. The bio, the spiel. My name is Derrick G. I'll end with my work career things. I grew up in Sydney. I am of Chinese origin, although I thought I was Indonesian up until I was in high school, because my dad was born in Indonesia and we went to visit my grandparents there. So I thought that I was half Indonesian, and no one broke it to me that I'm ethnically Chinese.
Oh yeah, that's very common actually.
Yeah.
Like the Chinese migration, diaspora, then like rooting in another country and then raising generations. Yeah.
Definitely. And eating Indonesian food cooked by my dad and all that sort of stuff. And I, in terms of my journey, started, I studied at university visual communications. I say graphic design because like you can choose your paths and whatever, and majored in motion graphics. And so was always in the visual world in some sense. And then got my first job in television. I'm kind of going to the biography. Maybe I should save that. But my what I do now, I'll skip to the end. What I do now is I am a creative director, a radio host, a music manager or artist manager, and is that it? Sometimes graphic designer. That's what I do every day, which is kind of confusing, and it sounds very like multi-hyphenate shit, but it's just like I kind of just tackle the creative problems in front of me, and sometimes it's radio hosting.
Multifaceted.
Yeah. Did you want me to talk a little bit about that, the kind of that history, or did you want to ask? Yeah.
Do you feel like you were always drawn to music and creativity when you were younger? Was it always something that you wanted to work in, or do you feel like there was something that you felt that you should do or had to do, and instead you ended up here? Like, how would you describe the journey to where you are now?
Both.
Yeah.
I don't think that I was a visual person growing up, and I don't think I am still. I wanted to be in music, played in bands, but didn't really know my place in it. I never became an artist. I had all the production gear and tried to write music and gave up really quickly, and didn't really realize that you have to kind of grind it out, and it's just like any other job. You've got to get better at it. And simultaneously, my older sister, did the same course as me at university, and she was doing that, and I kind of thought that looks like fun and I can do that. And I also was a bit scared about like a music industry private college route after school, because I didn't know what that looked like, and I didn't know what I wanted to be. But my mum knew what I wanted to be, which is like a music producer. But I kind of shied away from that, so I just chose what my sister did. I think I'm good at answering briefs and solving problems more than I am being a creative. And so I could, like, at university, I did well. And then when I went into the TV production, was kind of like, I just came up with ideas, and I kind of offered myself forward for different things. And I managed to develop my ideating skills and stuff. But then I circled back, because then I started my own radio show at home on my own for no one on Mixcloud, and built a little fan base and following, and then reached out to some people, and then ended up hosting a show on NTS for years, and then picked myself up and moved to London because I wanted to work in music, and kind of made the leap that way. So it's kind of it all came around because it was always in my heart, but I had to start with a side project to connect the dots.
Yeah. So you were working in TV while doing the radio show, and then from the radio show, you decided to move to London, and then you worked for Mixcloud in London.
Indeed, yeah. And it was like Mixcloud music streaming platform, worked in the brand partnerships team, so like working with Dr. Martens, Adidas, doing shows with like Peggy Goo, with Idols, with Bakar, things like that. Working in music, quote unquote, it kind of was adjacent to, because it's like brand partnerships, but you have a music and a cultural cred lens to it. But that was the first time where I felt comfortable being like, I felt like myself. Like I felt like I was around people that listened to the same music as me, and I didn't dress like them, and I only kind of started to feel more comfortable with fashion in a sense when I was there, because I didn't really know how to express it, because I felt, and this isn't a problem with Australia, it was a problem with me, but I felt alone in this country, feeling like I was the only one doing this type of thing or interested in this type of music. And it was really my shyness and my lack of going out and networking, and I kind of needed to leave the country to get a bit of bravery.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of how I felt as well. Like, it's not that there weren't people out there that necessarily liked the same things as me, but I mean, Perth is even smaller than Sydney, so it was like kind of hard just in terms of being a woman and a woman of color before, like, pre 2016, 2015, when like diversity became like a selling point, I think. And yeah, I think there is definitely something to be said about changing your environment and feeling like you kind of get access to like a different part of yourself as a result of that shift. It's like that part is always there, but sometimes an environment shift or, you know, changing the people that you're around is what allows you to activate that part of yourself. So I totally know what you mean.
And then combining the two, you know, because like when you come home to visit friends, or whether you return to like for good, people might not know you as that. Like I did, like it sounds dumb, but I didn't have long hair. I didn't wear jewelry because I was like, felt too scared to try that. And just going somewhere where no one knew me, I was able to explore that. And then coming back, it's like, hey, I'm the same person, but I'm a different person, and that's cool. And allowing that, like being okay with that, I think is its own personal hurdle to overcome, because you can want to change to be back there because people are like, oh, look at you all fancy, look at you all this and that, and it's like, I don't know what I am, you know.
Yeah, or like it's a constant evolution anyway. But I do feel like sometimes Australia, because it's like isolated and culturally it is very laid back as well, it can be difficult to like, if you are kind of evolving and shifting at a faster pace than how things around you move, it can feel kind of like this tug of war. Like, do I stay the way that I am that's familiar? Do I progress further and then seem or feel alienated from what's around me? So I do think that sometimes being in like a different environment or a bigger city can help with that.
Definitely. Sure. People feel like they know you better than, like, well, they tell you who you are, you know? And I think it's owning up to the fact that you don't even know who you are. And
and they don't know either. That's why they are like looking to you to help define where they're at. I think that happens a lot too. You know, like when people are unsure of embracing themselves, only someone in that mindset would look to someone who's changing and feel threatened by that or be confused by it. That's kind of what I learned and observed from people around me. And it's not like that makes them a good or a bad person. It's just like a mindset that you can become aware of and decide whether you want to be in or like shift out of.
You know, you obviously know the people that have that bad energy, but then it's also sometimes you have to be brave enough to show the people that you think love you who you have become. And usually they're like, sick.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're like, what's this about? And maybe that's where the relationship ends. Not at that, you know, just at that aesthetic level, but maybe if they don't accept that you've maybe changed, but you're still genuinely, your heart's the same person, then, you know, friends aren't forever. They're for moments in time.
Yeah. The girls that get it.
Exactly. I say that to myself all the time.
Yeah. So do you feel like you've ever struggled between like the corporate side and the creative side of working in music or working in the creative industry? Because I think even though you mentioned like you're working adjacent to music in terms of brand partnerships, I feel like these things are almost like they coexist together now, like branding and music, or like the commodification or whatever of culture and art. I mean, I think that the relationship between the two has always existed, but now in like digital age and everything, and the way that information and media is like distributed, everything is almost like packaged as advertising. Not everything, but so much has to be like, that's how people have to make money now, to attach to a brand or to whatever. I don't know.
I can safely say I work in the industry now with like working with labels and artists directly. When I was in London, it definitely was adjacent to, but I think I needed that as a transition almost, because I don't think I had the chops for anyone to consider me to work in the music industry, working in TV. Like I applied for a bunch of jobs when you know, if anyone knows anything about NTS, it meant something at the time to have a show, but that doesn't mean that you therefore are a good creative for music. Just because you have taste, then you can be creative in an adjacent industry. So I needed that kind of like transition where it was still like corporate in a sense, because you have to work with brands, you have clients, you have deliverables, but then you're also, you know, you're in these venues and you're working with these artists and you're trying to promote their work and champion their stuff. But I've had this conversation with someone recently about the crossover between creative and corporate, or what you said, like advertising and branding and stuff. I think that it's crucial to have a sense, and I do attribute this to my study. You have to have a sense of the audience at all times. And I think branding and advertising is part of being strategic about how you communicate with an audience. And I jumped on a project recently to help out with their strategy, creative strategy and rollout. And you have, and no shade on the creative director that was working on it, but they thought about the creative in isolation, but then like music videos, all that sort of stuff. But then it's like, well, how are you going to tell this story over time? And no one's thought about it. And it's like, that's part of the job too, in my opinion. Like, I am not the most auteur, creative director that comes up with these incredible visuals. I think about like, okay, this is the record and how are we expressing it? And like, and how,
narrative is
and how are people consuming it? And how are we giving them too much information at any one time? And how do we add layers to it? So that is part of advertising. I think it's like thinking about where, how much brand awareness is there? How much affinity do they have to this? And then stepping it through that way. So I think that I'm grateful for my journey, that I can approach it from a left brain, right brain point of view, which is like, the creative can be beautiful and no one can see it. And that's a failure to most artists because they want to sell records and play gigs and shit. And so it's got to engage people and it's got to tell the story. And if you miss that and it's got very few views, then you've kind of not done the full job.
Yeah. I guess it's kind of like a spectrum between like the purist mentality towards art, which is like art in a vacuum from the artists themselves, and like, oh, if people see it, they see it. If they don't, they don't. And then the other end of the spectrum would be like creating just for consumption's sake, or creating just for profit's sake. And then you can shift along this spectrum, and ideally you're going to find a balance between the two things. But I guess what I observe is like people thinking it has to be one or the other. Either you're making art just for art's sake and you have no narrative or idea of how it's going to be sold, how it's going to be consumed, or you're literally just jumping on a trend and creating because you know that you're going to make money off it without any real connection to like a story or to an artist's intention. But I feel like that's something that people can struggle with a lot because there's so much criticism about how art or content is monetized and like, does that take away from the purity or the artist's intent? And I don't think there's like a clear answer to that either, but people want there to be an answer. Like, it's this or that, it's good or bad, but it's like so many different ways of approaching.
There's so few of those like real, or define real, but like artists like, like Dean Blunt or Arthur Russell or something like that just want to create and don't give a fuck if anyone ever listens to it. Like, I think most people go into it wanting to play shows, wanting to perform to people, wanting to make a living out of something that they love doing or they have a passion to do. And so I think when I speak to young artists especially, it's like, it's important to, if it's their values as well or their vision, to think about it as a business and build a team that can help you to realize your vision and grow your business. Because I think a lot of people want to make music, but they want to be able to not think about the next paycheck. And
of course.
Sometimes that's like, there is, like you said, that putting it out and hoping people, see it. But then there's PR, there's there's a whole bunch of different things that need to happen for people to see it. Unless the very one in a million where you just put something on YouTube and see people find it, which is almost impossible. Almost.
And I wouldn't like recommend that anybody bank on those sorts of chances, right? It's like, if you really don't give a fuck, you can try, but you can't guarantee success that way. And I think that art in and of itself is like a way for people to connect, like not just connect different dots in their head through the process of creating, but then also seeing how other people connect with that part of themselves as well. And the idea that you're so purist and you don't need anyone to see it, it's like almost goes against the purpose of creating in the first place sometimes. I mean, obviously you can create it for the sake of creating, but nobody who's doing that is complaining about how people aren't seeing what they're doing.
Yeah, there's very few that I've come across. But there are the enigmas. There's an artist called LL Burns that I've been trying to work with for years, and they don't care.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it would be hard to come across because the people who truly don't care aren't trying to find ways to be found.
Yeah. If like in Australia, like when you're a new artist, you put something on Triple J Unearthed, and like you wouldn't put it on there. You would do everything.
It would stay.
Yeah. You'd put it on SoundCloud.
Your hard drive.
Or just share it with friends and make it for yourself. But it's expression of performance. It's meant for people to hear usually.
Yeah. Actually, like when I was at the Apple store a few months ago, I was like asking about how I could back up my music, and then the guy that was talking to me at the Genius Bar, he was like saying how much time he spends on Ableton and making all this music, but he actually has no intention of releasing it, whether it's because he's like afraid to or doesn't want to, but he said like he just shares it with his friends and they kind of give him validation that he's doing a good job. Wow. And like that's almost enough for him. He just loves, he was like telling me all these different things on Ableton. Wow. I was like, damn, if I could like make music that my friends thought was good, I'd be putting it out there straight away.
Well, you know what it is as well. I agree, but then at the same time, I think as I've learned, like a team is so important, and if you share it with people and you believe in it, and clearly you think it's something worth sharing, because I've made stuff that no one's ever heard because it's awful and I haven't shared it with anyone. But sharing it with people is like you're kind of proud of it, and that kind of energy kind of builds, and you will find someone that's like, you know what, put this out, or you know what, I'm going to send this to my friend, or like it doesn't matter if it's on SoundCloud or you're sharing it with people for feedback, like, or not even feedback, but in many ways the group I'm managing now, it's like it came to a point where I had to work with them. If that made sense. It was how can I express it? It was like I didn't want to be a music manager, but it had to happen because I had so many ideas and so much passion behind what was happening, and became quite protective of the people trying to take advantage of them, that it kind of like I did it. And so you never know when things are being shared, just who comes out of the woodworks to want to help because they believe in it.
Yeah, for sure. And even just like the process of putting something out and then kind of feeling like you can then move on to the next thing is also part of the process of like getting better at things. Like that's something I always try to remind myself. It's like sometimes it's better to do something, even if it's not to like the taste that you have in your head, but like having it start at a lower skill level so you can then build up to the next skill level. Very easy to get caught up in thinking it has to come out like, polished and at the level of someone who's like Grammy nominated, when you're literally just spent like a year or two learning something. So the journey is so important. Do you feel like in terms of music management, like have you really embraced the role now that you previously felt kind of like unsure of assuming?
Yeah, it's been amazing. I didn't know what it meant, to be honest. Mm-hmm. I was like, I thought with any artist I came across, maybe I could be their creative director, but no one can afford that. Like when you're small, like unless you've got major label budget, no one has on retainer creative director. But I was just looped into their conversations in terms of they'd update me and ask me questions and kind of mentor, them in a little bit. And then,
how did you meet them or come across them?
A mutual friend.
Yeah.
It was like, you should check this out. And in case anyone's interested, I should mention they're called 1300, Korean rap group based in Sydney. But I think in many ways, it's almost like running a label without running a label. You have to really, because that's my ambition and what I will do one day. But it's really from the ground up. It's you gotta set the tone and the vision, and you gotta help run their business from making sure that their music is celebrated as much as possible, and meeting the right people and talking to the right people, and vetting out the real ones from the fake ones, and not signing anything until you're sure. And so it's been crucial for me because it's an amalgamation of creative and business and music, and I'm not an artist and I don't ever aim to be, but I want to propel the careers of people that I believe in and use my skills to help do that. And so I'm very happy to be one now, and I think it's, for a lot of people, I think it's a great way to be helpful in music if you don't have, like, if you want to get involved and you believe in something. It's like, you know, it's a necessary you know, part of their business that I think is you learn so much as well.
Yeah, I think like when I was younger, it seemed like to be interested in art or creativity or music, you had to pursue being like a public facing role. It's like you just had to be an artist. But now, or like after my experience, and I think now just with more conversations around the industry, more transparency, you can see that your interest in art and music doesn't have to be from a creator perspective. It can be someone that helps to facilitate, somebody that helps to organize, strategize. Like a lot of people, I think everybody is creative, but the expression of creativity comes in different ways. And like some of the most inspiring people that I've met are people who work behind the scenes and have a creative vision that, and skills that usually don't seem creative, but facilitate an artist's journey or facilitate huge projects and events.
Yeah.
So
it's the I don't like the word creative or creativity generally. I think it's overused and it's not accurate to anything really. I think for a long time I was like, if I want to work in music, I wanted to be the creative person within music. And it's like, once you let go of that, you can do so much. I think it looks cool. Like to a lot of people, if you're in the creative industries, it looks cool to be the, oh yeah, I did the creative on this, and like this artist is succeeding, and it's because I had the eye, and all the cool things that you see is me. And yeah, it's like, that shit's easy. Like, it's not, I know it sounds arrogant, it's not easy. I mean, like, there are so many talented people that can do that, you know, whether it's designers or illustrators or directors, and like, you don't need to say you are creative to have an impact in the creative space. And I think because I've been in it so long, I'm kind of numb to the idea of like creative and concepts. I think people are, and I'm not saying that people shouldn't be. I just think it's like, it's not to be held onto as the high watermark of
like pedestaled in any
of art and achievement. I think that everyone is creative in different ways. And what type of creative person are you? Like, you're a creative, I'm a creative. Your skill set would be totally different to mine. It would meet some places, and it would, you know, and when I meet people, I say, like, I'm a creative director, but I'm, you know, I care a lot about strategy. I care a lot about audience. I care a lot about, you know, the business as well. And let's find some other great creatives to do other parts of it as well, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like, the word itself to me is just like a marker. It's just like a necessary part of like the job in a way, but the way that I see, or the way that I would like practice or work, it's like, everybody has different creative perspectives and input that go into something. There isn't one person who's held at the center of the concept or of the vision. And I always like tell friends who maybe don't identify or label themselves as a creative, who feel doubt towards their creative ability because they are creative and have creative expression, creative ideas, but they doubt themselves because they don't label themselves as such. I'm like, you are creative too. Your ideas have just as much value as somebody who does label themselves as creative. Like, it's not something that I feel I want to do, but I just do it because it's easy for me to then identify opportunities, or for people to identify me. But I think, for the longest time, I was like, everybody around me is creative, even if they don't label themselves as it. And like it's just like the different skill sets that people have that work together like a jigsaw on a project. I think that makes working in this industry fun and exciting. And at the same time, there is this like atomization of everyone's roles, like, oh, because of this one person or that person, and you forget how much collaboration is part of creative work and creative teams and just work in general. You know, everyone wants to take credit or be at the forefront or the face of something, but there's so much collaboration and connection that goes into any type of work.
Totally. And it's ego as well, because I'm working on a project right now, and there's 2 creative directors, me and another. But we have totally, because we know each other, we have totally different approaches to things. And he is more of a storyteller. He kind of, in a pitch, brings a kind of magic and a finesse to his language that is quite magnetic. Not to say I don't, but I'm not, that's not what I would call my, like, what I hang my hat on.
Yeah.
In the project for me, I'm good at coming up with ideas. I'm good at coming up with the things that really people go, that's it, that's the one. So for this project, I came up with the main, solution. He's the one that gave it the language that brought what I was communicating to life.
You can come up with the bones and he can add like the flesh.
yeah, exactly. And so it's cool to be like, hey, do your magic to it. Like, you like what I we have this long call and I'm like, how about this? And everyone's like, great. And I'm like, okay, cool. Well, I'll just do a bare bones and then you make it sound exciting, So it's not being like, oh, well, I thought I was the creative director. I thought it's just like, okay, we can both do this together. It's we both have different approaches to the same job title.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I've appreciated from being younger and feeling like I was working by myself. Like, because I started as a DJ, it's like you've got to figure out how to liaise with promoters, you've got to book everything yourself, you've got to do all your own invoices, you have to also market yourself if you're literally like a local DJ. And then just like seeing the public, like the narrative around artists, and it seems like it's just them, you don't kind of see the team behind them. But then from working in the industry and experiencing collaboration and like being able to connect with people who have a different skill set but can work together on one vision, I think is really valuable for like young people who want to get into the industry to think about, because it's easy to maybe get into an echo chamber of like, oh, I'm a DJ, so all my friends are DJs, I'm a photographer, all my friends are photographers. But it's so much more powerful if it's like a DJ and a photographer working together, being able to share ideas, being able to collaborate. The DJ plays the music, the photographer takes the pictures, you are able to then like build on something rather than compete with each other. I think when that's something that like I would tell young creatives to consider. Like, don't feel like you have to be in competition with people that do the same thing as you. You can collaborate with other people with different skill sets and then build something entirely new together.
It's really good advice, because when you are inexperienced, you kind of want to protect it all for yourself, and that's the worst thing you can do, to be honest. Like
gatekeeping, like a seed.
You
haven't even got a garden yet. Why are you stressing? Plant the seed, grow the seed.
I felt like, when I left Sydney, I was like, I felt like, people didn't understand my tastes and my thing. It's just like, I should have been going out there and sharing that with people and trying to find people and just supporting others. I think supporting others would have gotten me my foot in the door in Sydney. But I didn't want to, because I was like, well, I am clearly, doing something that they don't know that's even more special. And it's just like dumb,
Yeah. So do you have any like other advice that you would give to your younger self or somebody that is starting out? What kind of things do you tell people? Because you're definitely more experienced further along. And you mentioned before that you had someone reach out to you about your experience and you hired them.
Yeah. What sort of creative? Any?
Yeah. Or you can be, if you have any specific, like according to things that you've done so far, or like general advice.
Okay, 2 things. Don't be shy to reach out to people that you're a fan of and show that you're passionate, and don't overthink it, and you will be surprised what comes of it. But also don't be precious enough, because you will not hear back from most of them.
Yeah.
I did that a lot.
Don't take it personally, but like still put yourself out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, I did that a lot. A lot of my opportunities have come from cold emails from people I don't know. And I've done some, and there's been loads that have not replied, but then the ones that really happen, I just go, fuck it. They're not going to know about me any other way, so I'll just say hello. And I say hello, and I say hey. And I almost send these emails in less than 5 minutes. I'm just like, this is coming from the heart. And then I wake up in the morning, they're like, yeah, cool, let's do something. And it's like, what?
Sick.
So I do that a lot but it's like when the feeling strikes, I don't have a spreadsheet. So yeah, like my NTS thing was that. It was like just cold. And like, who cares about NTS these days? But like for back in, I mean, like I tell people like artists I manage or whatever, and they're like, what's that? And I'm like, oh, it used to be a thing and you don't even know about it. Which is cool. I like that. But I just send them an email. I listen to you all the time. I host my own radio show. I like this show, that show, that show. I play this sort of thing. Would love to be considered. And I wake up in the morning, they're like, cool, when can you start? And I'm like, what? And I wasn't a DJ, I wasn't anything like that, you know, and it helped me move to London. So do that. I think.
Yeah, you had proof of concept as well. I think that's important. Like, it wasn't just like you were emailing
true.
for the sake of emailing, but you also were like,
True.
this is evidence of my work, and I can see how it aligns with what you're doing, and then where we could maybe fit in together. That's
true. And I do skip over that part, and people are like, oh, you were so lucky, but it's like, no, I was doing it for years.
Had a radio.
But also I wasn't planning to ever email them. I never thought they would consider me, and then I never did it, and then one day I said fuck it, and I did it, and I got it. But so there is also not just emailing someone because you think they're cool. Like, you gotta know what you have and what you have to offer. And if you have nothing to offer, say I don't have much to offer, but I can help you do spreadsheets, I can do anything you want. But in that case, it was like a radio show. So yes,
how often was the radio show on NTS?
Monthly. And I did my own weekly show for it. You know, at some point it was like tens of thousands of downloads, you know, but like I was doing it illegally, so it was like on Apple Podcasts and stuff, and then it got taken down after years. But it was it was special. But
did you have to be there to do it at first, or you were doing it remotely and then you moved to
I was
London
doing it from Sydney. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, I was doing it from Sydney. I think I was the only one at the time. And my other advice is to listen a lot and ask lots of questions. I think creatives get ahead of themselves and think that they're geniuses, but they're not listening to, you know, creatives by and large, because you're not artists, have a client, and they have a need, and you need to serve that, and not you need to add to it and grow it and elevate it. I always say to people that ideas are concepts, creative is the easy part, because once you listen and ask lots of questions, it's all in front of you. Like, I think a lot of creatives that my intern asked to intern with me and stuff, and I asked them to help me out with something, they jump to the conclusion before they even know what the brief is. And they're like, yeah, I got it. It's like, you're a rapper, and here you go, it's all this, here's the mood boards. And it's like, but what does the artist want to express, and did you listen to any of what they said, and what makes them unique, and what's their vision? And so I think it's really important as a creative to really get the right brief.
Yeah, I think definitely like the creative ego and like the artist's ego, like sometimes the creative has an artist's ego, and if you're servicing a client, you can't necessarily go in with an artist's ego, because you have to work with the client to meet their needs. They have the money, they have the power, they have the final say. And I think that's something that I learned very quickly. It's like, I might have a really great idea that I think is going to work for this client, but I also have to assume that the client knows their audience, their market better than I do. They have all those insights. So even if they're going to butcher my idea until it is like a tiny little sliver of what I originally thought, sometimes that's just how it has to be, because you're there to meet their needs, kind of thing. And I guess like if you work as a creative in one sense, but then also have the opportunity to work as an artist in another, that gives you more freedom to express
Yeah, true.
the way that you want to. I think that's kind of like how I've tried to balance it. Like, even though I work in a corporate setting or with corporate clients as a creative, I still try to have things that are like just pure for me to enjoy,
I
expression for
think
the sake of
that's,
expression.
well, like, we will touch on it later, but like your TikToks or your social media is not like your full creative expression, but it's a part of it. It's something that you're doing for you, that you don't have any rules. You can just come up with something and put it out there. And I think that that's why you found success on those platforms, because you have an eye and an ear, and you know what works in these platforms. But yeah, there's also different types of artists too. Like you said, it's always a spectrum. Some artists, I worked with Genesis Owusu last year, and it's like, you don't need a creative director. You just don't. You come up with all these great treatments, and you've got a vision. You just need a project manager or like someone that can connect you with the right directors to execute. But you don't need someone like me. And other people I've worked with have no visual sense, any conceptual sense, and they're just like, I've made this music, full stop. But that's not therefore so you go like, okay, well, it's mine now.
Yeah.
You still you do have to, draw blood out of the stone. You have to be like, well, where did it come from? What were you doing at the time? Because I think you need an anchor. Otherwise,
you need context.
Otherwise you'll just make something that they'll totally think it'll be my taste. And my taste is not their music. So there are spectrums, and it's I think, I don't know why I keep saying ego in this conversation, but it is about that. It's like always coming at something fresh. Sometimes people want your full creative vision. Some people just want you to, here's the idea. Do you know anyone that can help? And being flexible with that, not being like, oh my gosh, well, I need to rewrite your idea because I am the creative. I have the experience. And like Genesis, I can't remember, he's like 21, 22. And it's like, you've got it all figured out. And like, you have to be okay, me being a lot older than him, for going like, that is a good idea. That is not a shit idea because I've come up with more than you. That's bullshit.
Yeah. Based on your work with artists, do you have advice for artists? And is it like different to creatives?
In terms of what their creative vision, or just in general?
Just in general, like...
Don't. My favorite advice is don't sign anything for a long time. And find people that you trust.
Yeah.
And you are better off, this sounds self-serving, you're better off working with a manager that knows nothing than a manager that wants you to sign a contract before you've even sat down.
Great point.
To have a dinner. Because they will fuck you up. Yeah.
I think definitely the romanticization of like being plucked out of obscurity, having like a major label or someone with a lot of power finding you and then changing your life overnight, seems, from what I observe and what I've seen and been offered, like overrated. Because I think, and obviously that works for some people, but at the same time, working in an industry, meeting different people, having friends that have an understanding of how things work, even like you said, if they're not experienced, that is going to be so much more valuable to a trajectory that's like sustainable, I think, because
they have your best interests at heart as an artist. Number one.
And finding a balance between like working with friends and like managing those kinds of relationships. Because I feel like for me, I have friends that work in the creative industry but have different sets of skills, and I can ask them like, oh, I got offered this, like, what do you think? And they're like, absolutely not, don't do that. Like, oh, I can tell straight away, like from their experience working in production or whatever, they're like, no, this is how people will try to cut your budget or try to take a cut out of what you're doing, like make sure you negotiate this, negotiate that. And that isn't something that I could like pay someone to do for me at like the level that I'm at. So that those kinds of relationships are so invaluable. And I can also tell them like, oh, if you're looking for this kind of creative, you should ask this person, or if you're trying to create a project around this concept, then you should consider these things as well. Like that kind of behind the job exchange, I think, and relationships that people have aren't talked about enough in terms of like how that plays into each other's success or journey.
Yeah, it's it can be a beautiful world when you have really positive, engaged, loving people on your side, it can be completely fucked up when people don't tell you the truth. And that happens a lot. Because I've done enough in business and in the different industries, I can go into meetings and they will tell you that they've worked with the biggest artists in the world. They can tell you everything you like, and they don't tell you the one thing that you should know, which is about like how their or their budget, or how their structure works, and they'll tell you that it's the best deal in the world, and then you get a short form contract, and it's, without being a lawyer, you can read it and it's the most horrible thing ever. And you have to look behind, and this is not for an artist to do, but someone to do, unless the artist is interested. There's an agenda behind most things, and people will tell you what sounds sexy and not tell you that, oh yeah, this line means that you can't do anything else with anyone for 10 years. Oh yeah. Oh, and that as well. We have the right to do this with your stuff. And it's people, artists as musicians, people want to get in early because there's such a low, they're in the basement, so they can pay you $5 and you'll be like, nice.
Yeah, they're taking advantage of people's like passion and their inexperience as well.
Yep. And
so
keep to yourself, keep independent until you are ready.
That's great advice.
Yeah. Thank you.
So we mentioned social media. You've recently started on TikTok. What are your initial thoughts? How long have you been on? Because your account was just pushed to me like 2 days ago, and I was like, hilarious. Oh my God, it's Derrick.
I love that, because I knew you'd find me eventually, because I know that you're on there.
Yeah.
I started posting like a month and a half ago. I've been on TikTok for probably a year before that. How am I finding it? I think TikTok's amazing. I think it is. It is an incredible, very distracting, but an incredible platform that is re-communicating the internet in short videos. Like people are retelling history on there. They're teaching you things. You get your news on there. Like it's quite bizarre. It's not what it started out being.
Yeah, I was just thinking today, like, are there any trending dances? I remember like 2 years ago when I was quarantining in Brisbane, it was like the Savage dance, this dance that was like everyone was doing, like to the point where it had filtered into like Instagram and other platforms. But I was just thinking like, I haven't really seen any dances that have gone to that level of virality recently.
Yeah, it's complicated so much and so quickly. And like I said, it's kind of a representation of the internet in its entirety. So you see people just like, the website Who Sampled? Like people are just doing that, but that's their whole thing. Like it's like, you remember this person? Well, it comes from here. And that's their whole channel. And it's like, that's Who Sampled. You can look up, Tomoko around, or like The Weekend, and then it will be like, oh, look at this city pop song that has been around. But now it's like da-da-da. You get it in 5 seconds without Googling it.
Oh, that's so true. And like each account can be its own full website, like its own service.
I had thought about putting this as its own TikTok, this thought, but
you should. It's time.
It's like, I've been posting for a little bit, and like I learn about something, read up about it, and then make a video about it and share it. And people are like, oh wow, this is amazing, how'd you know about this? I'm like, I just looked it up and I told you about it. Like I didn't know about it before then. And I'm just regurgitating something I just learned.
Exactly.
So
I get comments like that too, like, how are you so wise, blah blah blah. It's like, because I read and I think about my life nonstop. Like
exactly.
And then I read other things and then I synchronize information together and then spit it out.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
That's what everyone.
And people are like,
I thought that's what everyone was doing.
Yeah.
But people are just waiting to be told things now, I think, through that app as well. That's like the risk.
But it's also knowing that you have the ability to do that. Like, Someone asked my sister asked me the other day, because my page is doing well and I just said, I think sharing stupid videos on my family's WhatsApp trained me to be fine with video on TikTok, because I'm just like, I've always been comfortable talking at the camera and filming things, but it's not because I was a content creator. I just I knew how to make a funny video to send to someone.
Yeah.
And now look at me now.
Yeah, exactly. So how would you describe the content that you make for anyone that hasn't been on your page? Was there an intention for what you were going to make? No. Is there a direction that you're trying to go, or you're just vibing it out?
So I'll share the story even though you didn't ask. Because I work in the creative industries, I worked with a bunch of TikTokers. I was looking at managing one in particular last year, and I just learnt a lot. And I learnt a lot. I'm a nerd in that I'm really interested in tech. I'm really interested in... I go to The Verge every day, which is, the tech site. I just like reading up about things about, not algorithms specifically how they work, but just how technology is changing and evolving and how interaction changes. From a human level, I really enjoy that. So I learnt a lot from this TikToker. I'm not a person that posts anything. I recently destroyed my Instagram and broke it down into 4 different sub Instagrams to showcase different parts of my work. People how do I message you? I'm I actually don't know. Whoops.
On this account, not the other 3 ones.
Yeah, exactly.
But on the other one, if it's about something.
Yeah, exactly. That I didn't think through. But I always thought that if I understood the back end of how TikTok works. And so I always thought if I was to do something, I think I wouldn't be bad at it. And I did know that it helps, which I actually disagree with now, but I think at the time I thought it helps to just have a niche when you start, which is true in so much as it gives you a path. I was just on TikTok and there was a video of someone saying, show me something that is special to one community but means nothing to anyone else. And I was like, oh, that I wasn't thinking about being a creator, and I thought, oh, that I bet my speakers would work because I've got these speakers the size of dishwashers in my living space. And so I just filmed it and shared it, and it got 350,000 views, and I was like, nice, let's keep going with this audio thing. So spoke a lot about them, and then told the story of how I got them, and then people were like, well, tell me about those speakers in your office, and so I filmed them, and then it kind of started from there. So it's unfortunately it's an audio centric, hi-fi centric channel. I say unfortunately because it's
you have other interests.
I didn't plan on it being that. I just thought this will work, and so that's what it is currently, and I'm enjoying that. But I don't think you need to have a niche, because I think if the content is good and if you have an audience in mind, it will succeed, or if you make it well. So yeah.
Now you have dudes emailing you for home sound system consultation.
He shared pictures of his house. I deleted it, and my wife was like, don't do that, reply to him. And so I did, and then he shared me more pictures, and I'm like, oh no.
Wow, real passion. Damn. They should be filming for TikTok too. That's the thing.
That's it. It's all there for no reason.
What kind of things did you learn from the TikToker that you were potentially going to work with?
Well, he was very attractive, so I didn't learn that. That helps.
Being hot helps.
Yeah.
Is what you learned.
Yeah, which is that was his skill.
Okay.
It's funny because it's I learned a lot, and it's hard to articulate. I think he was a pretty boy, and so he had lots of girls loving his content, and he made content that was POVs and shit. I don't do that, obviously.
Yeah. But I'm interested what you gleaned from that, and if it in any way influenced the way that you create or you post, whether it's conscious or subconscious,
I think I just learned about how it serves content and how pretty quickly if it's going to work or not. And there's so much bullshit advice about when I speak with artists on a call with artists in TikTok head office, I shouldn't say this out loud, but I will.
I can cut it out.
No. It's post 3 times a day, do this, do that.
Yeah.
You don't. You just have to know who your audience is and speak to them and provide content. And I'm only a month and a half in, let's be real here, but provide content that feels unique to you.
Yeah.
And
that you have like a natural affinity towards
yeah,
for whatever reason or however that's come about, I
yeah,
think.
yeah. So this magazine, Room, A Room with Sound, Casa Brutus, it has Haruki Murakami's, like, an interview about his sound system. And I was looking at it because I can't read Japanese. And I was like, I bet no one's talked about this. And I bet that people would be interested in it. So I just got my Google Translate and I put the camera on it, translated it, pulled out my favorite things about it, compiled it, shot it, and it did really well. And it's like, I knew that people were going to be interested in it. And that is the kind of internet thing I was talking about, like repurposing things that already exist online. So I think I knew that I was delivering something unique to the audience, and you upload it and it's like, nice. Within the first hour, it had like 7,000 views. It's like, okay, this one's going to do well, and you also like testing things as well as you would have, it depends what you're in it for. Yours is more community. Mine's more like trying to hook people in immediately. It's understanding that you can kind of take something that you find interesting and flip it into something that people have never thought before. Because you've seen those TikToks where people share things that's like, I thought I was the only one that thought that.
Yeah, tapping in to the collective unconscious.
Yeah, but then it's also like you got to know how to shoot some things somewhat well, like that's well lit and stuff like that. But I didn't anticipate that like a lot of the success that I've had so far is because people argue a lot, and that helps. And I've tried to bait on videos and it did the opposite, but it still works. So like my latest video, I thought people were going to hate it because I just took a video from YouTube that I watched recently and thought it was interesting. And
the function one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one that came up on my feed.
Right. And my goal with that was I wanted, like, all my audience was US. I watched this video and I thought this will do well, and I think a UK audience will like it. And it did, like a large percentage of it's UK. I thought that people were going to hate this guy because he was such an asshole, like said it with such like, with such confidence and such arrogance. And so I thought, great, people are going to hate this, but I think it's interesting. I think it's great. I posted it and everyone's like, exactly, this guy's a genius. And I'm like, oh, and it's got like 1,000, 1,500 comments. I can't remember, but it's like, oh, that's the opposite of what I was trying to do, but it still worked. So usually it works for different ways. In the Murakami one, people are arguing about whether he's a misogynist or not. And I'm like, oh, just thought his sound system was cool. Like, I wasn't saying...
that's a separate issue to what music...
People are in there going like, what? Do you think the feminism started here? It started here. And I'm like, oh. But it helps because the algorithm knows that people care about talking in this comment section. So I learned a lot of things about just communicating that version of your personality or truth, I guess.
Yeah, and the way that it can be received or like picked apart on that platform specifically, like it's so different to Instagram. It would be so difficult to achieve that level of exposure on Instagram that you do on TikTok when you like on your first video or like just with like no audience, I think that's something that's really unique.
Exactly.
To TikTok.
Yeah, my first video had 300,000 views and it was like, I've never posted anything before. And you post stuff on Instagram, and I tried YouTube Shorts and it doesn't work like that. So the same video, no one watches it. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that reminds me. Usually I post like the promo video for the podcast on YouTube. I just haven't done it because I just don't even check.
Yeah. Well, the algorithm doesn't exist like that. So it doesn't push it to people and doesn't learn what your content is and how to share it. So it's very unique.
Well, I wish you the best on the rest of your TikTok journey. I'm excited to see how your niche might expand or pivot into different areas. That's exciting.
I definitely will refrain from creative industries, I think. I think that can stay in its own lane.
Next thing, we can touch on relationships. How would you describe your maybe current relationship or like the journey to your current relationship? And then we can maybe discuss like, I don't know, if you have advice for people, or I think it's better for you to like describe how you feel and your perspective and then people to like riff off.
Yeah, fair.
And like decide what they do or don't resonate with, I guess.
Yeah. I've been married for 10 years as of yesterday.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. Been together since for almost 15 years, I want to say. We met at university and we were friends before that. I remember at the intro to this podcast, you said like people that have more experience or whatever. I have a experience. Like I haven't had another partner, which is like, you know, its own thing. So it's its own, you know, take that experience with a grain of salt, you know. Yeah, I'm in love with my relationship with my wife, like as its own idea, experience. It's been a beautiful thing to experience and also witness it evolve almost as an observer. And we have both changed tremendously, but enjoyed that and encouraged that. And I think that's what's made it healthy and strong and open and you know, the funny thing is when friends ask me for advice, it's like we have had horrible fights. Horrible. But who doesn't? But people are like, what, you do? Because you guys are like solid as a rock. It just like it doesn't mean you don't get fucking furious about shit. But it's what happens after that, and it's what we both like to learn. We both like to evolve. We both like to change our minds or admit that we're wrong. Not like to, but we're very open to it. And so
that's more important than just like being right or just like having it your way.
Yeah, like
short term. The
fight is the worst thing, but afterwards we go like, oh yeah, well, I shouldn't have done that. And we always usually come to that where it's not like, oh yeah, you were just wrong there. It was like, yeah. And we move forward with that in mind. So it's a funny thing for people to think about us that we're, you know, no couple is perfect. And I think perfect couples, you know, can be quite gross. It's like, because it's like, you know the ones where it's like, it just seems perfect. And it's like, it's not like that. It's usually it's not, but if you're able to own up to the fact that you fuck up often, but you are allowed to say, hey, I fucked up and I want to do better, then maybe it's all right.
Yeah, I guess it is like, I feel like sometimes people apply like a logical exception to relationships, like, oh, life is fucked and all these things are hard, but if you're in a relationship and it's a good relationship, then it will defy all odds and it will be easy and there will be no problems. Like, that's what a healthy relationship is. But it's more about like how you handle the challenges that come with life in your own life and then together with your partner that determine like the health of a relationship, not the denial of anything bad that comes up. And I guess for like my generational age group, I think some people get caught up in creating an image of a perfect relationship or consuming images of perfect relationships that aren't a mirror of reality by any means.
Totally.
Like, I feel like the more energy people put into sharing an image of their relationship, the less likely it's like actually that way behind closed doors. I mean, just from what I observe, people I know in healthy relationships aren't posting up all the time. It's not that they don't share their partner, but it's not like their online identity. And for people who are chronically online now, which is so common for the younger generation as well, it's like they're just constantly comparing what they do or don't have to these images, whether they're conscious of it or not. And then it just becomes this like crazy
totally. And I think at the beginning it can be like that, like, you know, when, because I got together again at uni, you know, there still was the when do you check when your boyfriend and girlfriend type shit back then, you know, and like, oh, should you post more of your partner or not? Because if they're not, you know, if you have a grid and they're not on there, does that mean you're self-centered? But obviously you grow out of that. You know, the relationship grows and you realize it's not for anyone but the two of you. But
yeah, I guess like at the beginning stages, that like anxiety around how to define the relationship can take over actually building a relationship. But then, as you have experienced, when you move into the commitment, those things don't matter as much because it is between the two of you.
It's but you got to feel comfortable, you know, that, and that takes a long time. I think that, you know, we spoke about it on our anniversary day yesterday, just like how it's been almost boiled down to its essence just before life is about to get complicated again, like with the baby, which is great. Like it's like we really get each other's what we mean when we say something. Like before it'll be like, oh, why are you talking about that guy? What are you trying to say? Not like if when you're insecure, you know, and this is not anything recent, years ago, or like same for her. And it's now it's just like you can say, oh, that person's pretty, that person's whatever, and it's just like, yeah, it's not like therefore what for us, you know?
Yeah. What was the reason?
I'm quite a romantic person, and at the beginning of our relationship I did so much, and she loved it and I loved doing it too, and now it's like we could literally just on an anniversary say happy anniversary and get on with our days, and it means just as much, you know. And it's whittling that down of like the drama and the courting of it all, and now it's just like we love each other. You don't have to like do a song and dance to show me that. Like, and that's not to say that romance should die. I just think it's like understanding that there's
the different phases and stages.
There's more to life, and we're in, you know, we're in a particular place, or we've got other things on our mind. So, you know, we understand that.
How do you think, I guess maybe like the different changes that people go through in life can present the most sort of resistance in relationships of any kind? And I think it takes practice to develop an awareness of the ways that you're changing, you know, because I think sometimes people get stuck in like, this is how I am, this is how they are, and this is how it's got to stay. And like the uncertainty that comes with change. So how would you say that like you and your partner, either individually or together, have been able to kind of embrace that and support each other? Because I think that's one of the most important things in any type of relationship, even friendship as well.
I think you need to understand that they don't and shouldn't know themselves fully for the entirety of their lives, and the same goes for yourself. And I've only learnt that over life, that the most dangerous thing is someone saying, this is what you are like and this is how you are, because then you will either try to do the opposite or you accept that. And it's like, you know, I've changed, you know, at times, whether it's political views, I've changed, you know, I used to be a lot less, quote unquote, spiritual. I'm not that I'm entirely, but like, you know, I'm the typical straight guy. Horoscopes are bullshit, and this and that is bullshit, it's dumb. And you know, my wife opened me up to different things, and I'm like totally open to all that stuff now and enjoy it. And not be like, well, he's just he doesn't believe in that shit, he's just that kind of guy, you know. Has allowed myself to explore those things. I didn't try to over prepare or think about this too much when we spoke yesterday, but one thing I did think about yesterday was being able to accept who I am, because she loved me for who I was finding out I was becoming. It's a bit of a puzzle. Like a good example is like, you know, when you're a skinny guy like me, especially in Australia, you're very self-conscious, and she always complimented how much she thought that was a beautiful thing. And it took me years to appreciate that, because I always wanted to be like buff, because, you know, of the portrayal of what masculinity is. Yeah,
hyper masculinity in Australia.
Yeah, and to kind of just go like, you know, not wanting to wear shorts at the beach when I was at uni, because I was like, people will make fun of my legs, you know. And to my wife thinks that my legs are great is a bit icky, but it's also really important. It was important for me to like embrace and not go down a gym bro path, which I kind of wanted to be. And I did go to the gym a lot and have like protein powder and shit trying to get big. It was dumb, you know.
Trying to get hinge.
Yeah, for real. And so there was also that encouragement of like, she wasn't trying to change me. She was just trying to show me who I was, you know. And that's a good thing. So, and you know, yeah, we change our minds all the time, and we try to like, we look at other people around us, and whether it's older people, younger people, and people just decide who they are and decide on their trajectory. And it's like, we would like to feel like every year there's something different that we didn't think we'd like, or like we're doing something we didn't, and not just be like, okay, I just like this type of music, for example, and that's me. It's like, you never know. And that's been fun.
Yeah, definitely like opening yourself up to new experiences and perspectives, opinions is so important to enjoy life, experience life, not just as an individual, but also with anyone that you are in any kind of relationship with. And I guess that's kind of like, can be stifled. I always go back to the way that social media has affected us, but it's like underrated and overrated, the impact that it's had on how people see themselves, I think. And this idea that you have to curate an image of who you are or acquire different things to create an identity. But as much of a role as like things play, it's also like experiences play, like you're moving through the world, not just your acquisition of like little trinkets, I think, or like your ability to pose and make your life look a certain way to people while feeling shit about yourself. I think that's like one of the biggest gaps that can be hard for like the younger generation to bridge. It's like spending all this energy on making your life look a certain way to other people, making your life look fun while not having fun yourself. And when you prioritize having fun yourself, how it looks to other people matters less, but then your experience of life becomes so much richer.
Yeah, I think we like to unpack why we do things, and we talk a lot about that, and understanding the real motivation behind your actions. Whether it's posting on social media all the time, or pursuing a friendship that you kind of like to bitch about or whatever, and really peeling back. There's usually like 8 layers there before you get to the root of it, and it's usually you.
Yeah, it's usually like, and childhood trauma. Yeah.
In a sense, it's like you're trying to do this because you're trying to show that you're not that, and then when you all break it all the way down, you're like, oh yeah, I don't need any of that, or oh yeah, that person that I hate is actually my problem because blah blah blah. And life can be very simple when you just look at why you want to do things. And I think that's why I explored music and have had success in it, because it's like I was in TV and I was really trying to pare back what am I doing? Like, what do I actually love? And peeling it all the way back and then starting from scratch again. Yeah. And it's fun. I like exploring those things.
Yeah, for sure. Wow. I think that's a good place to end.
Check out my podcast. Check out my TikTok. No, I don't.
I'll put everything in the description. All the links.
That was a joke. Don't check out any of it. You weren't meant to see my TikTok.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Derrick. Great to have you. So many valuable insights that you've provided about your life that people can take with them, marinate over, dissect, judge.
Thank you for having me, and thank you. My favorite things about certain podcasts is sometimes you listen to things that there's a skerrick of a relevance to your life because you're thinking one of those things at the same moment, and you go, oh yeah. And we've all had that multiple times, and I hope that one person might go, maybe all my ideas are terrible. No. Yeah, it's nice. So thank you for allowing me to share.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.